Hey, awesome people, welcome back to season 2 of Her Voice podcast series. I'm Chetna, your host, a mother of two amazing kids. This podcast was born from a deep desire to give a platform to all the amazing women out there who have stories to share. Those little inner voices that often go unheard. Those stories that are filled with successes, craziness, memories, joy, pain, challenges, and everything in between. This is a space for voices that deserve to be heard, for experiences that deserve to be shared, and for the strength that connects us all. Season 2 is incredibly special to me because this season is dedicated to my journey. Jim taught me the meaning of unconditional loyalty, the importance of living in the moment, and many more things. In his honor, this season will be a celebration of those lessons blended through the voices of women who have faced their own challenges, joys, and journeys. So let's dive in and listen to these beautiful voices together. Welcome to season 2 of Her Voice. So, welcome Akshara, welcome to Her Voice podcast series. So, just wanted to know more about you, and I would want you to share your journey to the audience so that it can be a guidance or an inspiration to the students who are hearing out you. The first question is Akshara, like I just want to know who is Akshara.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm Akshara. I was born and raised in Bangalore. I've lived here for 14 years, and then I moved to the Philippines with my parents, and then I've kind of moved around a lot since then. So I was in India, and then I was in the Philippines, and then I was in Hong Kong, Atlanta, and New York. And a lot of this was part of like my education as well, traveling for education. Growing up, I think I've always been a very creative person, but in like my own ways where I used to dance, I used to like music, and I used to watch movies. But I never really thought of it as me ever going into like a creative career in like the future. And it kind of just happened in school because the college I was going to, they came to our school to just do like recruitment. And so thankfully, my parents being very supportive, and even though they're like Indian and being creative and going into a creative career is just not something that we do traditionally, they were very supportive of it. And so I had kind of applied to go into advertising, and then the story is just the same since then. It just clicked and everything worked out.
So, Akshara, as you were just sharing that you have been in Bangalore and Hong Kong and now completed your graduation in Atlanta. Based on your experience, what was the kind of differences in the culture when it comes to India or Hong Kong and when it comes to the studies, how they give the encouragement for the domain which you are chosen? And I know, as you just told, that your parents were very supportive and they understood that you're good at creative side and they encourage you to go ahead and do. But personally, from your experience, how was it a different culture in these three places which you experienced?
I think it's very different. Like you said, like in India, I think being creative is seen as something that you just do extra as a hobby on the side, which you can kind of drop even if anything. Like, so if exam season's coming around, nobody's taking you to dance class and they're like, okay, focus on dancing. They're just like, focus on studying, do maths, do science. And even kind of going into PU or like looking at after 10th grade, people are always like, if you're doing something a little more creative, it's not really creative as much. It's just more marketing in terms of sales and like numbers. So it's still creative, but with more like data rather than like drawing and like doing design. I think in the other places that I've been, there is a lot more importance to these creative aspects. Like people push you to do drawing, and like it's part of curriculums, and it's part of curriculum to learn how to do graphic design and photography. And they always encourage you to take up as many of those extracurriculars even in high school. So I did IB, and in IB you get to kind of choose higher level studies and lower level classes. And one of the classes that they actually gave out was art. and music. Like there were actual classes that you could take instead of like, let's say economics, if you didn't want to do that and you knew you wanted to go into like a creative career. So they had those opportunities. But I don't think in India that's a thing. That's something you do on your own on the side. So I
Yeah.
think it's definitely very different. And it did, if anything, kind of hold me back also because when I did go to art school in the end, I was like one of the only people who came from background with no art because everybody else came from different cultures that encouraged it, and mine was more of on the side if you want to do it. So it gives me a lot of imposter syndrome in that sense as well.
Okay, I'll come back to that question again. But before that, as you were just sharing, right? Like, it's about the different culture. Like, but is there anything in particular you were already aware that, okay, if I choose this career, this is the pathway? How did you get into it?
Honestly, I had no idea, but again, because this information was just not available and it wasn't something I was ever thinking of. Like when I was in Bangalore, in my mind, I was like, I'll go to Christ College and I'll go do something that's like BCom, and I wouldn't like that'd be the closest I can, like the farthest I can get away from science and the farthest I can get away from engineering.
Okay.
And so that was always the idea. And then only when I moved to the Philippines, only because the college that I went to came to school and they kind of broke down that, oh, like you can do creative, but it doesn't have to be painting and drawing. It could also be advertising and you can go into interior design. Like there's so many different avenues to be creative and it doesn't have to be just drawing and painting. So I think that was the only reason I kind of figured out that maybe that works. It was definitely trial and error, and it was definitely like I kind of took a risk and I made the leap because it could have gone the other way completely for sure.
Okay, so how old were you when you got exposed to this?
I was about 16. 16, yeah.
Ah,
16 is when I moved. I moved when I was 15, 16 to the Philippines. And so just being like a little more creative mainstream was more in how like what I was exposed to. And then 18 was when college came and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna actually do this as a career.
so you got that information at the right time when you were about to choose the stream.
Yeah. Like literally, like I keep telling people this because it's so funny to me is that when I was applying for colleges, like SCAD, which is the college I went to, was the only art school I'd applied to. I'd applied to
Yeah.
like UBC in Canada for psychology, and then I'd applied to EHL for like hotel management. So it was very different areas because I didn't know what I wanted to do or that I could do something creative. So it was very out of a whim that I applied to SCAD.
So, like, what exactly you do at your workplace?
So I'm a designer and art director. And till recently, I was with McCann New York, which is an advertising agency in New York. And so we had clients come with campaign ideas that they wanted us to execute. And we would kind of build the visual language for that.
Okay.
So we would build campaigns, but also do branding for companies and come up with visual identities for them. So basically, the look and feel. So when you look at something and you're like, oh, that looks really cool because the color palette is cool and the logos are really nice. That's what I basically do. And even when there's like photo shoots and you see how everything's laid out, that's kind of what I take care of all of
Okay.
that.
Coming back to your college, like as you told that you got an exposure, you got some information. It's not only art, painting and art, like there is something beyond that in the creative domain. Once you got to know that from there to reaching to Atlanta, can you just share your journey on that aspect? Where were you and how you evolved with respect to understanding the gap between what the need was there and where were you? How did you work on those things?
So moving, like going to Atlanta, that was, I mean, purely because SCAD had multiple campuses and I always knew I wanted to go to Atlanta, like I wanted to go to the US eventually. So it was just the course of the thing of going to Hong Kong and then moving to Atlanta from there to finish my education. It was hard in the sense of I had to kind of manage living out away from home, moving so far away from family, and being in a new place with nobody around me. Also, plus COVID hit exactly at 2020, which is when I went to Atlanta. So it was an
Okay.
added thing on top of that. And
Okay.
also at the same time, I was going through the whole creative thing of I don't even know if this is the right path for me. I don't know if I was supposed to be doing something creative because, again, of that imposter syndrome and feeling like I was catching up with everybody else there. So it was a difficult change and it was a lot of work, but I think it helped me get more independent and it helped me like learn that, to be fair, everything can be learned. So even if you don't think you're very creative, it just takes practice and it takes the right motivation to really push yourself to be creative. Because I think anyone can eventually be creative and everyone is creative to a point. So I think it did help me just be more motivated, become more independent, and just push myself more and more.
Okay. So, what was that one thing which drove you so passionately, even though the COVID hit, you were lacked skill, a bit of skills? What was that one thing which always pushed you?
I think once I figured out, because also when I did advertising, my main concentration was art direction. So when I started college, I was kind of focused on art direction, which was kind of directing photo shoots and coming together with a concept for something and just being able to tell stories visually and connect these stories to people and make people feel something through all of this. And I think I fell in love with that aspect of being creative, of being able to tell a story and having people resonate with it emotionally, which pushed me to keep doing it even though I like felt like I wasn't always really good at what I do. It kept me wanting to keep pushing myself just so I would come up with better stories and I could tell better stories and kind of connect with people myself as well as have them connect with each other just by resonating with the same thing.
Okay. Now that you have been there since more than 6 years, I know now that the way you speak so confidently with telling that these were the things which came up. But initially, when you went, what are the challenges which you faced as a student?
I think definitely, I don't think I was very equipped with figuring out how to live myself. So again, like just basic stuff, I could not cook. I did not know where my meals were coming from. I didn't know what was happening. Plus, I had to balance that out with workloads. So it really felt like I was a fish out of water in that sense, where my like daily routine was not a routine anymore, and every day was different. And I wasn't like my brain wasn't comprehending exactly what day to day was looking like for me. And so that I think like generally that was an issue. And then I think obviously in the creative aspect of I didn't really have a background and everybody there seemed to know why they were there and what they were doing. And also they all came with a passion because they were good at something. So I had friends who were painters because they were good at painting and that was their passion. They did it on the side, or friends who did graphic design before they even came in like high school. So it always felt like I was catching up with them and I wasn't quite there yet. And it was almost feeling like I was faking my way through it, which was also very hard, I think, because then like grades would come out and my grades wouldn't be the same and it would be much less. And I wouldn't know how to improve because they weren't also teaching you basics.
So
People
how
came
did you
with,
navigate those situations?
I think, I mean, I had a very good group of friends who were super nice and very understanding and they were very helpful to me in their own ways. So anytime we had a drawing class, and obviously like I wasn't kind of grasping how to maybe draw a perspective of a building, I would always have friends who would go out of their way to like help me and teach me their basics because they understood that not everybody comes from a background of art. And also I think in college, even though they wouldn't teach us the basics, they were always there to help if you needed it. I think I just had to learn how to ask for help because I think at a certain point you just feel like, oh, if I ask for help, it means I'm doing it wrong or like I'm failing. So I just had to kind of teach myself that it was okay to ask for help and it doesn't mean you're failing if you ask for help.
Okay, okay. So you had a good support system. So, so passing through that college phase when you joined, when you started working, how was that journey of yours? I know that staying away from parents, staying away from home, from the place where you were spent quite long time, getting into a job where you get money, plus you get that freedom, and you also get to do the work what you love. How was that
Mhm.
experience, and how did you enjoy that?
I loved it. I've always believed that I would do much better working than I would studying because I've never been a study kind of person. I never got good grades. That was not who I was. So I always thought I would do better in a job than at school. And I think that's exactly what happened to me was I think I kind of found my footing when I started working. And also, again, when you join a company, especially abroad, where they understand that you're just out of college, they understand you don't really know a lot. And so again, there was a lot of leeway where they were understanding. They were like, okay, we're going to teach you even if you don't know. You just have to be willing to learn. And so it felt more comfortable than rather than nervous. Like I wasn't as nervous to join the work field than I was excited because I felt like I was learning more than me getting criticized for not knowing something. And of course, me having my own money and living myself, I bought everything I wanted to buy, lived the way I wanted to live, and had like decorated my space the way I wanted to. So I think, if anything, I felt more in tune with myself and who I was when I moved. So I think I did much better going from college to work than from home to college.
Okay, I also think when we're discussing, you also share something about your earns, certain medals. Can you just share about that experience? Why was that recognition given? And
So I mean, there's a bunch of advertising awards that we go through in a cycle. So we always try to do work that makes an impact. And of course, if you make an impact, then we get recognized for the work and we get awards for them. So one such instant was we just worked on this initiative called the Pen to Write History, which we did in collaboration with this other nonprofit organization. And the whole idea was in the US, in New York specifically, marijuana or cannabis is legal, but there are a lot of people who are in prison before that bill got legalized, and they were in prison for just possession or for anything. And so even after it's been legal now, they're still there. So the whole initiative was to try to get them pardoned and try to get them out of there by having families of these people write notes to mayors and have the mayors then sign off on their pardon. And so we did this initiative and it garnered so much love and attention. And one of the mayors from Maryland actually signed it. And we ended up having about 175,000 convictions pardoned. And so it was one of the biggest US sanctioned pardons, like statewide, countrywide. And so for
so
that, we
great.
won. Yeah, it was really cool. And it was really cool to see that we designed something visually that connected with people and connected with people in power to actually bring about actual social change.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so that got recognized, and we won about, I think, 7 awards for that, just that itself. And with this, a bunch more, because we always try to do work that like connects with people and actually has real life impact.
So, how do you feel, Akshara? Because till now I was just hearing about your creative aspect, but when you create some impact and that changes, how do you feel about it?
It's amazing. Like it feels so good because it's something tangible. Because I think creativity is so subjective that if I make something, you might hate it, but the next person might love it. So it always like it doesn't feel real a lot of the times. But then when it actually makes changes in the world and things come about it because of that, it feels so tangible. And you're like, wow, okay, what I did actually made an impact. And I don't have to be like a social worker or a lawyer for things to like actually like happen in the real world. Like I can be creative in my own way and use that to bring about change or use that to connect with people. So it always feels really good when you get that kind of recognition, even if
Mm.
it's even if it's not an awards, even if it's just numbers of people connecting with it or like things that are coming out of it. I think it's very helpful and it's more motivating, if anything.
That's really amazing to know about because I just heard about the awards, but when you just now shared about the kind of impact which it had, and that impact matters a lot. It's just by your creative work if you're able to put that impact. Imagine what else can be done in the future.
Thank you.
Uh,
Yeah, it just feels very gratifying, if anything, because you're like your voice is heard and it feels heard. But
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Akshara, I just also want you to share the students like from across the world, anywhere, if they're planning to get into the domain what you've chosen, what is that two, three things or they should keep in mind when they want to get into this?
I think first thing, especially because I would have loved to hear that when I was younger, is that you shouldn't feel like you can't get into something creative just because you don't have a background in it. because I think everybody is creative in their own way. It's a way to fine tune it and make it work. So even if you're 18 and trying to go to college and you're like, I have no creative background, but I want to do it, I think you can totally do it and it'll work out well, as long as you're just willing to learn and willing to be okay with it. And I think another thing is always being okay to ask for help, regardless if it's at work or just other creative people. Because I think the creative industry is a very passionate and friendly field where everybody just wants to help each other, especially if they want to help each other be more creative and kind of learn more. So it's always okay to ask for help, and it never means you're failing, never means that you should quit and go back to engineering because that might be easier. It's never that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think just being honest about what kind of being aware that creativity isn't only drawing and painting, and that there's a wide range of things. So if you're not comfortable with being that creative or doing a career that creative, you can do something that's closer to like marketing, which is still not, it's still creative, but it's not so far away where you're painting for a living. So I think just being aware that there's a lot of range in that creative industry.
Very beautifully told. I think I want the same question. What is that one thing which you would want to tell to the parents?
I promise there is a future. If there is a future in a creative field, it's you can 100% make money, you can 100% be settled, you can 100% do very well. And I feel like a lot of people have this perception that it's not a continuous growth and it's a hit or miss. Like one day you might be doing really good and one day you might not. But again, there is like you can go from like you can raise up the ladder in a company, like but still be creative. Like it's the same progression as if you were doing a regular job also exists in the creative field. So I think just being a little more open to what that looks like and not being completely against it just because we have this preconceived notion that being creative does not get you anywhere, or like you can't be successful and you can't be settled, but it's very much possible.
Okay, I think the message was very clear to both poor parents and the students who are looking for to start their career in the creative domain. But what is that a student can do if he or she wants to study outside? What are the few things if they have to keep in mind while choosing the colleges there, or the prerequisite before they apply for the colleges there?
I think it would definitely help to maybe dabble in some sort of creative thing, even if you just want to take some photos and like get into photography, or if you just want to, play around with your computer and do some graphic design. I think it's always good to have some sort of skill before. And I know that a lot of colleges do appreciate a portfolio. That doesn't have to mean necessarily that you have to be good at it and you don't have to have amazing work, because everybody knows like that's not what you're going there to learn that. You don't already have those skills. But I think just kind of setting up a portfolio or just kind of showing your creativity in your own way in a certain way is very helpful when you're applying to colleges. And I know a lot of colleges don't need, at least art schools don't really need SATs and don't really
Yeah.
need IELTS. A lot of them do. So I think that's definitely something to keep an open mind about and figure out, find out if they need it. But for the ones that don't, you just have to pay attention to your portfolio and maybe just what you want to do and what kind of creativity you want to show. So when I went to SCAD, I applied and then I didn't have a portfolio, but like the person who was there asking for the portfolios was just like, do you take photos? And I was like, yeah, I take photos. I have a camera. And he was like, just put it all together and send it. Like, that's
Okay,
all you need.
that's great.
But yeah,
Okay, so is there anything which you would love to share?
I think, I mean, this was the best thing that honestly happened to me. I keep telling my parents that I don't know if I would have made it in India in something, but I don't know if I could have stuck with engineering or if I could have stuck with medicine or law. And so when I got into the creative field, I was terrified, but I think it was the best thing I did for myself. And I think it really brought out who I was truly. And I would like to say I have succeeded and I want to keep succeeding. So I definitely think that if you think you're creative and you want to be creative, you 100% should do it.
Okay. So, one final message to all my audience.
I think it's if your parents are telling you that it's a hobby and that you should not put that much attention to it and study, you can tell them that it can be a career. And it's not just a hobby if you just give it a chance. It could 100% be a career.
Just like how we are taken up.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it was really wonderful chatting with you, and I'm really proud that, like, being at such an young age, you have achieved so much. And when you shared about that one incident of getting your the creative work getting recognized and how that had an impact, that was really touching. I mean, if I have to take out the one big takeaway, was that for me. So thank you, Akshara, and hoping to see you in the next few future episodes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed sharing my story with you. And yes, anytime you want to have me back, I'm happy to talk creative, non-creative, everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me. Thank you for tuning into Her Voice podcast. I'm Chetna, and it's been an absolute joy to bring you the incredible stories and voices of women from all walks of life. Remember, every voice matters, every story counts, and by sharing, we lift each other up. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of your own voice. Take care and see you in the next episode.